Gender inequalities and stereotypes in the workplace are nothing new. But what does this mean for individuals who are facing inequalities such as discrimination, unfair pay, and those being stereotyped in the workplace because of their gender? My name is Mia, and today I'll be talking about what gender inequality is, what are stereotypes, and how gender socialization can be harming our kids. To talk about gender inequalities, we must first identify what gender and sex is. First and foremost, gender is a social construct. Society has constructed their own definitions and meanings of gender based on what we observe and believe. There is no science or biology that comes with gender. An example of gender would be the clothes that someone wears. If someone is wearing a dress, do we consider this feminine or masculine? Well, social constructs have said that this aspect would be associated with someone who is female and likely identifies with the female identity. If someone has very short hair, this would be considered masculine in most cases. So, how is this different from sex? Well, sex has to do more with the biological makeup of an individual. An individual can be born biologically male, but their gender identity is female. For this presentation, we will be focusing on cisgendered individuals. Cisgendered people are individuals whose gender identity is the same as their sex. Stereotypes are an image or an idea of a person. This essentially puts an individual in a box and labels them based on the labels that society has given them. This can be attributed to socialization, which we will go over in the next few slides. Gender stereotyping is the same concept, except it's more specifically applied to gender. Gender stereotyping is a conventional image of someone regarding their gender. Some examples of common gender stereotyping include the idea that women are emotional and fragile, while men are stoic and show no emotion. That girls like makeup, fashion, and playing with dolls, while boys like to go outside, play rough, and watch sports. Gender stereotyping is harmful to the individual who's being stereotyped. Some of the outcomes of gender stereotyping against women in the workplace can include lowered self-esteem. The individual may have doubts about their abilities and question themselves more often. It can diminish leadership opportunities in the workplace. And if someone is told that they can't do something over and over again, they might start to believe that they can't do that thing. Jessica Cundiff did a study regarding gender stereotyping and how it can influence gender disparities in the workplace. Cundiff noted how there are 4 different types of gender stereotypes: positive feminine, positive masculine, and negative masculine. Within each of these paradigms, there are certain types of behaviors that these individuals will do, according to Jessica. Women who fall into the positive feminine category will be nurturing, empathetic, compassionate, and sensitive. In a way, the women who fall into this category are seen as motherly and taking care of others. Women who fall into the women who fall into the negative feminine category tend to be seen as dependent, weak, emotional, and insecure. These individuals often need help, and others might deem them as a nuisance. As we will see here in just a moment, the negative feminine category is starkly different from the negative masculine category. Men who fall into the positive masculine paradigm are often self-reliant, assertive, and confident. Through this paradigm, we can see that the positive masculine has no similar traits at all to the positive feminine. In the positive feminine, women are supposed to be kind and gentle, while in the positive masculine, men are supposed to be assertive and strong. Men who fall into the negative masculine paradigm are often arrogant, forceful, disrespectful, and egotistical. Again, we could see that this is in direct opposition to the negative feminine stereotype, where the negative feminine traits is to be weak and emotional, the negative masculine is forceful and disrespectful. In this study, 147 participants were presented with statements. Their job was to rate to which degree the statement resonated with either female or males regarding gender stereotyping in the workplace. The study found that gender stereotypes and discrimination in leadership positions within the workplace have no correlation. Now that we have covered the basics of gender stereotypes in the workplace and in general, we must address gender socialization. Socialization as explained by Cohen, states that it is the process by which individuals internalize elements of social structure, making those elements part of their own personality. Essentially, what we are raised and surrounded by can have a huge impact on our personality. On screen, you can see a graph that details what boy typical activities include and what girl typical activities include. Immediately, we can see that when comparing these two lists to each other, they share almost none of the same elements. But it's in the language that we use to describe these activities that socialize our children into believing that they're different. On the boy typical activities, we can see that the second item listed is using tools to make things. And on the girl typical activities, we can see that that crafts are listed. When people craft, they typically use tools to help them craft. These tools can include rulers, scissors, staplers, etc. And in the case of the boy typical activities, they're using tools such as screwdrivers and hammers. But why would this not be considered crafting? One can assume that this is due to the fact that this activity is feminine and deemed feminine, and that if boys were to do this, they would not be considered masculine or not man enough. The list shows the boys engaging in outdoor activities, fighting, building, and fixing things. And on the other hand, the girls have more docile activities that relate to arts and crafts, caring and nurturing, and helping in the kitchen. Females and males dominate their own field, but which field are they? Females dominate the field of teaching, but more specifically pre-K, or pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, secretary positions and receptionist roles, as well as nurses. Why is it that these specific fields are female-dominated? Well, Kusawayo writes that women organize together because there is a shared identity which occurs because of the gender division of labor, which unites women together. These fields require a lot of work in helping people, but in helping others, it appears that women in their respective fields also help each other. Male-dominated fields include electricians, construction laborers, groundkeepers, truck drivers, and construction managers. Something that I immediately noticed was the similarities between boy-girl typical activities from the last slide and their gender-dominated fields noted on this slide. Is gender socialization limiting children's abilities based on their gender? Well, no, it's not limiting their abilities, but it can be limiting them on what is socially acceptable for them. Put simply, men earn more money than women. Equal jobs dominated by men or women, men still earn more money. An interesting example from the textbook talks about how truck drivers, which is a male-dominated field, as we saw previously, earn more than nurses' aides. It's often believed that men who work harder jobs, It's often believed that men work harder jobs and therefore deserve to be paid more. It's important to note the change in labor force within the past decade. All jobs and fields were male-dominated, but within the past decade, women now have entered the job workforce and the job fields that were male-dominated. And the reverse, male entering female-dominated fields, has not happened as much as the previous. So to wrap things up, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience as a woman in the workplace. I'm currently a student worker at Barrett the Honors College on the Polytechnic campus. My current role is the lead desk assistant for the Honors College at Poly. I help oversee the other desk assistants, and currently, as of now, we only have one male desk assistant who's actually leaving by the end of the semester. So the desk is currently female-dominated, and in the past has always been female-dominated. I've worked this position for over a year now, and I was promoted to lead DA at the start of the summer. During that time, I was able to become a student leader with helping plan one of Barrett Poly's biggest events over the summer. During that time, I trained 20+ mentors and volunteers for this event. After this, I interviewed and trained the new desk assistants. Although I'm working a job at the Honors College that is a female-dominated position, I'm trying to expand my role at the Honors College. My hope for the future is to be able to ask kids the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And have a little girl answer, I want to be a construction worker. and ask her again in 15 years and hear the same answer. I want to ask a little boy the same question and have him answer, I want to be a pre-K teacher, and see him in 15 years doing that exact job. My hope is to see these gender stereotypes disappear so that the sky is the limit for women, and so that we don't have to try twice as hard to prove to men that we are worth something and that we can do it just as good or even better than they can. And here are my references.